Hello and welcome to the show. This is Today in Space, and today we're going to talk about the March for Science. And to do that, I have Sara on the show once again. Thank you for joining me.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So this is the second March for Science we've been to.
Yeah.
A little bit different than last year, but it was good. You know, last year, I want to do a quick recap for those that maybe didn't watch that episode. It's episode 122. It's actually our pilot episode for YouTube. So this is actually almost a year after we started the YouTube channel. So it's pretty cool.
Woohoo, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much. So last year it was very political last year with 2016 or 2017-2016 election. We're all aware what happened. So there was a lot of, I think, people worried that science funding was going to get taken away, and we've seen a bit of that. You know, we've seen regulations cut and things like that, but that wasn't really fun last year. It wasn't like, I don't know, you tell me, but it didn't really feel like we did much last year. That was kind of my take last year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like our takeaway last year was a large grouping of nerds who didn't have any sort of clear message.
Yeah.
And they were all freaking out a little bit, maybe.
A little bit, yeah. And even I had a little bit of a freak out last year too. It was just more just like of frustration, you know. Yeah. It was just like, man, like this is. It felt like completely all over the place. Like everyone was just kind of going in whatever direction they wanted to in support. So we didn't really have a clear message. So this year, what I wanted to do differently was to get out there and figure out why people were there.
Yeah.
Go talk to the people. What do you do? What are you passionate about? And start from there. And I was very happy we did that, because it's so easy to get caught up in, you know, the craziness of what the situation seems like. You know, we've got this year, if there was a year on record that could be like, oh, wow, there was a lot of climate change. Yeah. I would say this year is pretty good. If you're going to use 1 year. Yeah. Pretty cold. It's middle of April and there's snow outside right now. So, right. Then all the other natural disasters we had. So we need to get people, if we're going to get science as part of the conversation, we needed to talk to people, figure out why they're in science. Why have they gone to the trouble of going out to a cold, windy day in Boston, right by the water?
Yeah.
To be there. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about a little bit what we saw there this year. So, sure. What was the important thing that you saw that was really important about this year?
Well, the thing that I noticed this year, perhaps more than last year, I can't say it stood out to me last year, was how there were so many different kinds of people there. It was a really multi-generational effort. I didn't say that word well. Multi-generational. Yeah, there were kids, there were, millennials, there were, adults.
Everyone older than millennials.
There was a wide variety of people who all kind of had their own clear messages, more so this year than last year, I think.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I love that multi-generational bit. And it was interesting too, because the amount of people, even though we went late last year, or by the time we got there it was late, there was definitely less people there. But everyone that was there seemed to be there for a reason. Like, it wasn't just like, oh, we just came to the March for Science. Yeah, we were walking by. I feel like that's what
everyone said last year. We just came to check it out.
Yeah, see what's going on.
But this year, and I feel like we were frustrated by the randos last year. There were so many weird groupings of people last year. Mm-hmm. There were definitely different people with different perspectives on what they thought was important there this year.
Right.
But less randos, if you will. There was no...
I didn't see a communist flag this year.
No, not a single one.
No.
Thank goodness. But, I feel like I said, there were more clear messages forming, which was nice.
Yeah, it was really nice. One of my favorites there was Alex, the young kid who was there and he had his computer car.
Oh my gosh.
We'll put a picture up right now. Like, it was it was awesome. He was adorable. Even his helmet that he was wearing was made out of parts from a computer. So
It was incredible.
yeah, so that was cool. So we had young generation. We talked to people from different generations, not even our own, and we had good conversations with people.
Yeah.
People who were intelligent. Thank God. But like who put thought into what they were saying and put thought into their logic of why we have to do these things. And that was refreshing. That was so nice because last year I couldn't get anyone to talk, and this year we got 2 pairs of people that spoke eloquently and gave us a lot to go off of why they were there and what's so important. So the first clip I want to play is from Dan and Doug. So thank you, Dan and Doug, for coming on the show and doing that interview with me. I know it was freezing out there. But the big thing that we asked them was, what got you into science? Because that's almost like the pivotal point. Like that's every kid growing up who's been in science has had that moment, whether it was a paper they, came across or it was a TV show that they came across, whatever it was, something got them into it. So let's hear what they have to say.
Yeah.
All right, we are here at the March for Science, here with Today in Space, and I have Dan and Doug with me today, and we're going to talk about what got you guys into science. What was your favorite science topic that really got you into it?
Watching Mr. Wizard.
Mr. Wizard, okay,
Yeah.
tell me more about it.
Well, so it was a show, it was Nickelodeon, right? I think so.
Yeah, late 70s, early 80s, educational program, kind of in an era when it was encouraged to get kids curious. So the interest goes back far. Yeah, started at an early age and kind of kept it going from there.
Cool. So did they talk about every kind of science? Was it kind of a mesh pot of topics of like what was available at the time?
It was a hodgepodge, not around any particular topic, but more about, how does one explore a question?
Yeah, the value of inquiry and the value of experimentation and getting us used to the idea that not every experiment works. And
That's a really good one.
yeah, and you have physics and anatomy and, but making it every day.
Practical
like,
application.
Swing sets and setting off chain reactions with the mouse traps, and you can't crush an egg with your bare hand. Why is that? The distribution of the force, all of that stuff. It was really cool.
Do you think that's missing today? Do you think there's a practical aspect of science that's not there like it used to be?
There's not a public appreciation. I mean, you'll see signs supporting, Bill Nye. Even Bill Nye, is a public figure now, but hasn't been on television in the same capacity of educating kids since 90-something. I think the public interest in science has dwindled from an entertainment standpoint, and that's a big driver of why people do what they do, right? So if it's not being reinforced in that medium, where is it being reinforced?
And
I agree with you completely.
There's way more competition in the media space now, too. So it used to be, hey, look, there's a science show. And now it's, competing with, really creepy, constituencies that are interested in convincing us of something else.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I was just thinking of the creepy shows that come on a little later.
Oh, well, there's that, too.
I mean, different demo.
Definitely different demo. So I think maybe that's it. Maybe we got to find the right demo.
Yeah.
And the practical aspect. I think that's what you were mentioning.
Making it relatable,
Yes.
right? I mean, that's increasingly difficult, especially I don't know with the rest of the competition that's out there. There's so much going on that you need to work even harder to get it to be something people are interested in. That's
Awesome,
kind of why
guys.
we're here.
Yes, and I appreciate you guys being here.
Sure
I really
thing.
do. Last thing, favorite scientist?
Well, Steven Pinker. He's not like high visibility, but linguistics, psychology. Yeah, he's my guy.
Awesome.
I'll give it to Hawking.
Hawking.
Yeah. Keep him close.
Cool. Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it. So, there was so much to unpack from that.
I know.
There was so much fun to talk to. I loved, that it came back to a TV show, Mr. Wizard. Like, I know for me, it was Bill Nye. I remember, being sick and staying home from like elementary school or something, and being with my grandma and watching Bill Nye, and just like periodic table and stuff like this. Those are the things I remember from back then. Like, it made it cool, made it interesting, and there were things you could do. I loved the applicableness, like what, even that's not a word, but like applying it, applicability. Yeah. Like practical use. What does science do for me today, for this, for now, like that stuff. Those are questions we need to answer for people. But what did you take out of it?
No, I think they both made incredible points. I really liked one of the points Doug was talking about, how his Mr. Wizard show, which I had never even heard of, incredible. Yeah. They taught people to explore a question. I think that's such an incredible phrase that he used. And it's something that I feel is, missing from society a lot, is how do we take a problem? How do we take a situation and form a question and then test that question? How do we build facts around a hypothesis? All of those things. I think that's an incredible skill to teach children, and he was talking about how, that's not necessarily the case today with, making science cool and I think it's a real shame, because it gives us so many skills in other areas of thinking and of problem solving and all those things. So, science is all around us. And it's not just one, it's not just in the chem lab. It's not just, the periodic table. It's not
just an app that's being made. Yeah.
No, it's all around us. It's a way to think. It's a way to problem solve. It's a way to process the world. Yeah. Those things, the biology, the medicine we get out of the space travel, those are products of the scientific mindset. You can't get to those things without constantly thinking every day like that, and every moment where you're trying to solve a problem. And I think that goes over so many people's heads. Like, that's not even the way it's described to them at all, And some of the greats, like Einstein, described it as a mindset. It's all the greats did. Well, we were listening to some stuff on Steven Pinker. Same thing. Yeah, I was going to say that I think the scientists that they chose were really cool. I come from sort of the psychology realm, the behaviorism realm, and so I actually hadn't heard of Steven Pinker, and I wanted to learn more about him. And first of all, he seems really cool. He's got a book out that seems to be really popular.
Enlightenment Now.
Enlightenment Now. But he was talking about some of the things about problem solving mindset, and how we can solve the world's problems using, scientific reasoning and concern for human welfare, and it's a great message for today. He's talking about positivity and how
we
all need to be more positive. I personally try to pick that battle every day, but he was talking about how so many things are getting better in our society, but we don't feel those successes. We feel all of the failures and all of the scary things. And he was talking about the negativity bias in psychology, how you feel all of the bad things more than you feel the good things. That there's a loss affects you much more than a win, and criticism affects you much more than praise. And talking about how the news is so can be seen as negative. Every party, everybody,
every side, anyone involved in the game.
And he was talking about, turning that picture around in a lot of ways and using scientific reasoning to work towards solving the problems. We can talk about the problems till our faces turn blue, but solving the problems is really what we're trained to do as scientists.
Yeah, and think of like someone we talk about a lot on this show, Elon Musk. Like, it's about progressing to the next step. It's about using that mindset. He never goes out there thinking that it's impossible to do something. He goes out there thinking it's possible, and then tries to figure out how to make it work. I mean, that it is about how you approach it. And a mindset can do so much for all of us. I mean, if we really focus on how we approach problems and like, what is our ultimate goal? Like figuring out what your thought process is, what it is, and picking up little things like scientific mindset. That can bring you so far. I mean, think about all the things it's done for us. One of the, Dolly, who's in our next segment here, our next interview, her sign said, got polio. And it was like, well, no, because thanks to science. It's
Right.
like, and it's not, and I think people get caught up in the thing is like, we're going to go out there solving this problem. But science doesn't always work like that. Like, you go out there figuring out something like one of the examples, I think it was Dan and Doug, we were talking to them about microwaves, like the first demonstration of microwaves. It might have even been Anthony. I don't remember.
No, I think it was Anthony. Mm-hmm.
It's talking about the demonstration of the microwave and how it's like, how do you demonstrate a microwave? It's invisible. So the thing they did to demonstrate it was to pop popcorn.
Yeah.
But the people who were investing in it saw a need and like, oh, we could make food with this. And it's like it goes from, it can even start just like the space program. It can start as something that's the product of the science is something that is used for war and something that's used for death and mass destruction. And then it becomes, through that process, that mindset, you figure out how to solve another problem with it. So that same thing that was used to destroy can help us explore the universe and figure out where we all came from and all that stuff. That is what's most important. It's not necessarily the thing that comes out of it, but it's that process that you can then figure out so many other problems.
For sure. Mm-hmm. For sure.
Cool. Let's head on to Anthony and Dolly, another great set of folks. Thank you guys so much for letting me interview you guys, letting you ask some questions. The big thing we asked them was, why is science so important? We'll leave it at that. Let's start it. We're here again with Anthony and Dolly, and we're going to talk about kind of why we're all here and why you're here. Why is science so important, other than the obvious stuff of the Earth could end tomorrow and we need to defend our country? What else?
Well, I'm trained as a historian, and in the long view, our economy, our society is sort of based on science working for us. And the U.S., our economy depends on innovation. And if we let that go, we're not going to feel it tomorrow. We're not going to feel it next week, but we are going to feel it in 10 years. And that's... The other piece of it is, I sort of seriously worry about a government that, fires scientists for doing research. Like, we need basic research, and people need to be comfortable with the fact that whatever they discover is sort of accepted as kind of an objective truth, that there's things that you can prove, there are things that you can't prove. But if we don't do the research at all, we're in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think, and we were talking about this a little bit before, and the example with the space. Someone said something that they didn't like. With the space program, we're going to have about a 6 or so year gap because we stopped funding on interplanetary science, and I think stopping it doesn't make any sense. And I think if the reason they're doing this is because they don't want to be challenged, then they don't understand science then, because they're constantly being challenged.
And I think the general public does not understand the economic driver that has been a huge part of this country from a scientific perspective. From very early military research to the invention of computers to biosciences, we have thrived as a country by staying ahead of the rest of the world. And I think I'd mentioned earlier that even from a manufacturing perspective, we talk about bringing back manufacturing, but most of the manufacturing that is in this country is related to science and technology. It is the high end, whether it's aerospace or electronics. Well, a lot of that has gone offshore, but I mean, mostly the high end work gets done here. I mean, you even look at Tesla, for example, who's manufacturing their batteries here. That will eventually go offshore, but your basic, your brooms and your basic commodities go offshore. So if we want, whether it's at the high end of the economy, or at the low end of the economy, we need to continue to innovate, and you do that in large part, at least in today's time, through science.
Yeah, I love that. And I used to work in Connecticut for a plastics company, and they were facing the same issues where manufacturing had gone for so long, and the issue they came up with was that their leaders, their experts, were about to retire, so they were about to lose entire generation's worth of knowledge. But they got smart about it. They joined together as companies, went to the town, did the politics from the roots level, and are now teaching kids and getting a whole new generation in manufacturing. I think that's, if the government can't do it, then we have to do it. I think that's ultimately what it comes down to.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And then I guess, you touched on this a little bit, but the decision making. We are making decision making based on our political goals versus based on the data, and that's not gonna end well. We know that's not gonna end well. So that is a major problem.
And one of the important things about when you educate kids in the scientific method, right? It teaches them to think logically. It teaches them to think about like future planning and all of these things that are useful in a lot more than sort of basic science. But like if we have a society that can think logically and kind of plan ahead, that's all to our advantage.
And
I love that.
Regardless of what discipline you're in, I mean, whether you're in the sciences or you end up in finance or the arts, having that ability to reason and rationalize is critical.
Thank you, guys. That's beautiful. I think scientific mindset's going to save us. I don't think political mindset's going to save us.
No, not right now.
No, not right now. On either side, really.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you, guys. So, again, just great talking to people who have put thought into what they're saying. Thank you, Anthony and Dolly, for being a part of that. And I loved what Dolly ended with about we were just talking about it, just the scientific mindset. She tied it up, I think, better than I could have done it. What did you take away?
Well, I mean, she started off talking about the economy, and she and Anthony were both talking about how, our economy in the United States is driven by our ability to innovate. And we innovate through the scientific method. Yep. So science really does draw, it creates our economy, you know. Anthony was talking about high-end manufacturing in our country, and I don't have the stats in front of me about what our number one exports are, but to me, it makes sense that our high-end manufacturing, that computers and all of those things is kind of where our strengths are as a country. So we need to continue to value that. Way of thinking, that, innovation in our country, that's how we are who we are, It's
where we've gotten to. All the things that we're experiencing, that we have the amazing position to experience, is because of those innovations that we've had in the past. Those trickle through, and now we have the amazing things we have today, especially in medicine, especially around in Boston. The medical side of things here is so advanced and at the head of everything. And it's goes back to a little bit what Anthony was saying. It's not just about being involved in the things we're good at now. It's also about being adaptive and being good at other things we're not good at, and leading. Like, the U.S. is built on the fact that it leads. That's where we're at our best. Our identity. And it's not to sit there and say that we are the best, but we need to strive to be the best.
Right.
It's like sitting there and saying, "Oh, we're number one for no reason." Yeah, of course I get that. That's stupid. But to say that, and it's one of the things I'm so happy about now in the age we live in now, where we're finally taking the next steps to lead in space again. That's great for us. There are certain areas where we're not doing that. Like, I think it was a big mistake for President Trump to get rid of the environmental stuff without replacing it with something. So whatever you want to say about what you think about the original agreement, what are we doing? And that's the whole thing. It could be any politician. It could be any leader. We can't just stop and then just walk away from it. We have to lead in this stuff. That is our what we need to do as the United States of America.
And I think the way that we, can lead best is through research. Dolly was talking about the importance of basic research, but I think all research is important, and yes, we were hearing loud and clear that people wanted, funding for research. Yesterday they were talking about how important, research funding is, and research in general is how we better ourselves. As scientists and as people. Every time you try something and it doesn't work, like that's research.
And let's talk about the basic core of that. What are you doing when you're doing research? either exploring something new, you're trying to redefine something that's already defined, or you're trying to catch yourself. Like you're trying to say, is this wrong? You know, and literally counter your own thoughts.
And that's scientific
right.
method, scientific thinking and problem solving. And
so I think that's what most people see research as the thing that the news stations quote for the thing. And it's like,
research
it's
says
more than that, you know?
Research proves. I'm like, I hate when people say that. I literally cringe every time because research doesn't prove
anything.
Things.
That word drove me crazy in college.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
You know, it's misrepresenting who we are as scientists. We find, are finding support a hypothesis.
Right.
They support a line of thought, a line of reasoning, or they, help to refute a line of thought or a line of reasoning, but they don't prove or disprove something.
No, and I always think when people sound so rigid about it.
Oh yeah.
It's like you don't understand I think you have a misunderstanding of what it is. It's this giant mesh of ideas that have been tested and tested and tested, but it changes, it morphs. The thing that's been on my mind recently is the idea of gravity and how we understand it, and how every time we've tweaked our understanding of it and figured it out more, it's changed. Think about Isaac Newton. Before that, we didn't even think anything about gravity. Then Isaac Newton figured out, there's something that's pushing down, but then he couldn't find the full equation for it, and Einstein picked it up and ran with it. And that's every time we made that little adjustment, we had major shifts in how we understood the world.
Right.
And so that's the thing. It's like gravity is the truth we're looking for, and the science we do and the way we think about it is the better we understand that truth. But we'll never get there 100%.
No.
And we may get like a filter on what we think gravity is, and then like when we had it with Isaac Newton, it was one color, and then when we switched it to one color understanding, switched it to Einstein, totally different color, totally different understanding of what it is. But I don't think people look at it as a stepping stone. I think they look at it as, that's it.
This is truth.
Yep. 1 0 0 1 1 0.
Yeah.
That is it. 0 1 0 0. Anyway, sorry. A little bit too much Futurama lately. I loved all that. Sorry.
No, the only thing I wanted to say was they were talking about data-based decision making, and I think that is just, that's what I do for a living, right?
Yeah.
I am an applied scientist. I take the theory and the basic research, and then I apply it to real life scenarios. In my case, it's children, with developmental disabilities and challenging behaviors, but I'm making data-based decisions all the time, and that's how I function as a human outside of life too, outside of work, and I just like how they were talking about no matter what field that you're in, no matter what, he was talking about the arts, and he was talking about manufacturing and all of these things that you wouldn't necessarily think to yourself, science, know, but it goes throughout any field, any.
I think about the progress I've made with this show. It's all been scientific. It's all been, all right, put a little probe out there, see what works. Oh, it caught on. All right, let's keep talking. This is the subject we need to talk about. Even how I'm approaching just different things about my business. It is a scientific process. It is about figuring out what the next best thing is to do. It extends to everything. And if we can, like they were saying, like they mentioned, loved it, just have that mindset, and everything else, and if politically, if we can do that,
right,
that would be something. We have a lot to work towards to get there, but
for sure.
Yeah. Speaking of politics, also someone who was speaking was Marc Pacheco, and he's a senator from Massachusetts, and let's do a little bit of a clip of him speaking, so we can hear more about what he had to talk about. Obviously referring to climate change.
Monies that could have gone to education, could have gone to healthcare, could have gone to public safety, could have gone to our transportation system. But no, where is it going? It's going to take care of the events that are left behind from extreme weather events. I am here to say today, we cannot plug our ears, we can't bury our heads in the sand and wish the problem away. The time has come for our state, our country, our civilization to respond to those shouts, to respond to the science and act now with urgency.
So, nice clip of the senator speaking some good things, I think, that are good to see from a politician from this side. It wasn't, he was talking about observable facts,
right?
You know, that yes, the money, our tax money, is going to defending these different things. And if you can just focus on one thing at a time like that, I think you can approach this a lot better. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, he was talking about the Massachusetts Clean Energy Bill, you know, and he was talking about, we didn't get the whole speech, but he was talking about how it plans to, you know, target climate change and other, you know, other important parts that the scientific community is kind of concerned about in those areas. He was talking about, you know, pipelines. We saw loud and clear that people were concerned about pipelines, new pipelines. That was something that we heard a lot about. Solar energy, you know,
talked about a lot.
Lots of people are talking about solar energy. You know, making it more affordable for, you know, and this bill targets making it more affordable for, you know, individuals, houses, and businesses.
Yep.
Yeah. They were also talking about, you know, utilizing more renewable energy sources, you know, and that was another thing that people really wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
You know, I saw so many, you know, clean energy signs. Somebody had one, you know, what was it, like, because it was a super windy day, you know, there were lots of signs about.
Oh, something about like this sign is is wind powered or something,
something
like that.
like
Yeah.
that.
It was really funny. And there were some good signs. Really good signs. My favorite was Half Lives Matter. That was one of the favorites.
Oh my goodness.
But no, I thought I think what they're doing is a good idea. I want to read more about it. I want to see how, you know, because that's the next thing I think with a lot of these bills is if we think about things scientifically or even just logically,
right?
Like, how is this going to be done?
Right.
Is this reasonable to expect this to, you know, however it lays it out in the bill for it to happen, will it work?
Right.
If we can think about it that way, so that way we don't just put a bill together that feels good, but doesn't do anything,
right,
then we're not doing any good. So I'm definitely interested to check this out because I liked the message behind it. So my hope is that they've got the science behind it.
And the crowd really seemed to be into it as well.
Especially the transportation part. They're really
that was super funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some other talking points here. Some of the things, so we mentioned obviously pipelines, solar, funding, obviously. I mean, you know, if I wouldn't be wearing the shirt, NASA is a big part of this. And funding has always been something we talk about all the time, about just bureaucracy and how things can just become a football and be thrown around for different people in politicians to use it as leverage, which is not, again, don't think about it politically, think about it logically. What is this doing?
Right.
I know politics can be fun, but so funding, I like what the space program has done. Private industry has now given the public industry a little bit more value. So NASA has given NASA a little bit more value because the private sector is thriving. It also gives us, in the space mindset about keeping humans in space and going interplanetary, we have 2 human-rated spacecraft now that are being worked on in the private sector, as well as the Orion capsule with the public sector. So it's like, okay, we now have multiple options for this. That kind of mentality can be used in any scientific endeavor, whether it's medical. You know, let the private industry develop. The public sector goes in, absorbs the risk up front, does the real upfront work to make it work, and then the private sector helps grow it past that point, you know? I think those are all great things for how we can get these things to work, and it involved the private sector to make funding seem more valuable. It could work. We'd have to look at the numbers, but seems logical to me.
Yeah.
Let's see. What else do we have here? A lot of talk about... What did I write here? I can't even read my own writing. Good Lord. Let's see here. Oh, emphasis on innovation, which I love.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to the whole thing. With the mentality of trying to innovate, with trying to make things better, you're going to find those things. And same thing with the scientific method. If you're looking for a way to solve something, you will probably find it. It's more likely you will. Without that mindset, if you're just kind of like, everything sucks, woe is us, the world is ending, you're probably not going to find a way to save the world. So, what were your big takeaway for you? Given everything that we saw, the cold weather we went to endure.
Yeah, overall, I actually enjoyed this year's march a bunch more than I enjoyed last year's.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like, although it was a smaller crowd, people really had strong messages that they wanted to share, and they had real reasons they were there. They believe in science, and they wanted to, share the word and, encourage the world to think scientifically and to, to stand up for what they believe. I enjoyed the experience, even though it was frigid cold and, trying my hand at videography.
You did a great job.
Thank you.
You did a great job.
But,
I appreciate the help.
But yeah, I really felt like people had, more that they wanted to say this year.
Yeah. And going off that, my big takeaway was all very, very similar. Less people, but there were more people there at this year. If there was a percentage of people that were there with a message and a clear, coherent... gusto. A little bit of passion. Yeah. It was this year. So it's kind of like, after the fair weather fans go home, these are all the real fans, So it was good. It was a great day. It was great to actually get people to talk and share their ideas. I love that, and I'm looking forward to do more of that. Sarah, thank you for coming on once again.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, another March for Science for Today in Space in the books. That pretty much ends it for this week. Thank you guys for listening and for watching. You can check us out at todayinspace.net. We've got our YouTube page. We've got our Twitter at Today in Space Pod. We've also got our Facebook page, Today in Space Podcast. Check us out on all those places. You'll be up to date on all the things we're posting. Don't forget to check out our merchandise. We've got our t-shirts. They are at todayinspace.threadless.com. They're $18 each, and you can pick up either our Pluto the Misunderstood, Mars Now with the Tesla Roadster, and Starman, or just our Spread Love, Spread Science I was wearing today in today's episode when we were interviewing. It's actually a lot better to do t-shirts than posters this year. I like that. Yeah. That was good. So that's about it. Don't forget you can get your free download, your first free book from Audible, as well as a free trial with our, if you go to our link, audibletrial.com/todayinspace. You can get a free book. I think Enlightenment now is up there, so you can check that out with Steven Pinker. That'll be a recommendation today. And you can get that once again, audibletrial.todayinspace. audibletrial.com/todayinspace. Man, blanking on that. It's a lot more different without it in front of me. Just trying to grab it from my brain. Okay, guys, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you again, Sarah, for coming on. Don't forget to spread love and spread science. We'll check you in for the next episode. Coming soon. Thanks, guys.